They lost their land and made the world their own. Hello and welcome to the Road to Enterprise. Today we are tracing the journey of the powerful Sindhis who were among the first to build truly global empires in business. During the partition of India, they lost everything that they had. But it is a testimony to this community's grit that they bounced back, and how. The Sindhis' tryst with business and commerce goes back a long time. In Mumbai, historian and former principal of the RTE National College explains how the Sindhis rose and how geography has played such an important role in their history.
So, Sindh was near the river. Indus River is there. So, river is the one which has given the Sindhis that psyche of a business community, because they knew the importance of the river. And the river doesn't go anywhere. The river is there for centuries. So, the Indus River has been a source of great inspiration, and not only inspiration, livelihood, and it is from here that the business community one could originate.
But geographically, this is also a very, very significant area, because not only is it the land of the Indus, quite literally, it is also the connection between that Multan and Punjab and Lahore, and you know that whole stretch is very, very historically important, because anybody who came into India came in through that way.
Because that was the northwestern frontier. And when you talk of western frontier, then there are two states which are exposed to the northwestern frontier, is Punjab and Sindh. When you are on the border, then all kinds of influences are going to come. That is why the first invasion, Muslim invasion that took place, has taken place in Sindh.
You know, I'm going to ask you, you know, a lot of people I've spoken to anecdotally say, oh, Sindh, you know, Sindhis have their roots in the Indus Valley civilization. It was an outward looking civilization with very, very robust trade, and you know, that is where the whole essence of it comes. As a historian, I mean, you know, it is very far back in history, and there were many, many influences. But how important is that connection according to you?
See, now we know that as far as Indus Valley civilization is concerned, first and the foremost thing, you use your logic. The logic is that it is in a geographical area where the Sindhis reside, where Sindh was. So, obviously it has something to do with Sindhis because of the area that was there, and that is the Mohenjo-daro is in Larkana, which is in Sindh. Now, not only that, but you know, as a area where the Sindhis, let's not call them Sindhis at the moment, give them any name, but they are inhabitants of that valley.
Sure.
And as inhabitants of that valley, they would look at what the valley has to offer in order to survive. And the valley has to offer, because of the, if you look at how early civilizations have come up, whether it is Egypt or it is China, Hongho, Egypt, Nile, Sumeria, all these are the areas which have grown on the civilization on river. So that is how the Indus has grown. Now, being the inhabitants of Indus, you call them anything, but as such, Sindh is the area, so they are Sindhis.
The land of Sindh and its people are inextricably linked with the river that gave India its name, the Indus. This has been the cradle of civilization, and it was in Larkana and Sindh that the great Harappan city of Mohenjo-daro grew. Even then, the people of the region were savvy business folk. Most of what we know of them through the mists of time is through trade links and their seals. Interestingly, some researchers and historians have even looked at the continuous links between the old undeciphered script of the Harappans, one of the greatest enigmas of history, and the trading script some Sindhi traders still use.
Other scripts have been deciphered, but this script, Indus script, has not yet been deciphered, in spite of the fact that the Germans have used the best of computers in order to decipher. Now, one of the reasons that could be that is the language which was a trading language, because there was no literature as such at that time. So, there was nothing as such as a written record. Sure. Seals and all were there, but there was a script which was the Hatwanika script. Hatwanika script is a trader's script. and this is a secret script. Only the traders, when they write their accounts and all that, they write in that language.
While the connections between old mysterious scripts and secret trading codes opens up tantalizing possibilities, a lot of work needs to be done here. What we do know, however, is that this area of Sindh has always played an important role thanks to its location. Almost a thoroughfare between West and Central Asia and the rest of India, the earliest Islamic kingdom was also set up here in the 7th century CE. But Dr. Anand believes that the fact that there were still nearly 25% Hindus settled in Sindh on the eve of partition indicates just how resilient this community was.
They are hardcore survivors. Sindhis know the art of survival. Under any circumstances, under any kind of diverse situations, they know how to survive. Now, how do they survive? They are very clever from the money is a very important thing for them. Now, how to earn money? And not only that, they are very clever from the point of view of they make themselves amiable to the majority community. Not only amiable, they make themselves indispensable to the majority community with the talent that they have got. So first and the foremost thing, anywhere that Sindhis go, they learn the local language. And once you know the local language, you have won half the battle, because the host population is happy that you are learning their language. Added to that is not only that, then they even take on the clothes and the way of life, etc. of the majority community. So they integrate completely as far as that is concerned, and those are the winning ways that the Sindhis are able to really survive.
No matter who ruled the region through history, the Sindhis controlled the economy of Sindh and its links with the rest of the world. Not just survivors, they thrived and also developed an open societal structure where old rigid casteism was absent.
But I want to talk about the two arms of Sindhi. So when we are doing a series on business communities, there is the Bhaibans or the Shikharpuris who went and created global empires much before partition actually. They've been to Thailand or Hong Kong, everywhere. Right. And a lot of the educational institutions in Bombay, for instance, the Hiranandani Hospital, all of them are run by the Amils. So you have the educated and the business, and yet both are smart enough to make everything that they do fly. Tell us about the social structure.
So social structure, like I said, it's not based on caste system, it's based on occupations. So that the educated class automatically became Amils.
But there were intermarriage between these two?
Oh yes. I'm telling you, there was no such thing as the rigidity in the system. There was no such thing. So there was, and it was an occupational thing. Those who took on education and those who took on, joining the government service, etc., took on the title of Amils. Amil is a term used by the Muslims. Who is an Amil? Amil is a official in the government. So that's how they took over that title, and then they were the ones who learnt the language, Persian language during the Muslim period, English during the British period. So they were in fact the class which made themselves indispensable to the ruling class by being in the official town. So that's how the Amil came. But like your question, was there intermarriage between the? Yes, there was, because there is no rigidity as such. They don't have any caste system. Caste system is a one factor which retards growth. Because of the caste system, you have very false values, and you've got mobility is not there, and you can just be on a high pedestal. Sindhis don't have that. Sindhis don't even know what untouchability is all about. So when they do not have these taboos, Sindhis were the pioneers who went out, because there was no such thing in Sindh ki agar tum ocean cross karte ho to you are an outcast. Other communities say shuddhi karna hai ya kya, whatever. They didn't have anything like that. So they would go.
The liberal, egalitarian structure of the Sindhis and their ability to gel and quickly take the reins of business anywhere worked wonders and ensured that there was never a problem. In fact, it is said that the Hindu Sindhis in Sindh were shocked when they were told that they would have to leave their homeland after India's partition in 1947. They hadn't seen it coming.
Because I have done a detailed study on this. In fact, if you read my book, the very first chapter talks about how the Sindhis, like you say, Hindus were in a shock because they never believed that there could be partition, and partition in this kind of a way. In fact, the Muslim Sindhis used to keep on telling them that you don't have to worry, you're a brother, we'll take care of you. And that is how the confidence, because there was no strife, like you say, between the Hindus and the Muslims, and the Muslims went on telling them, including their Prime Minister Khoro, that yeah, you're safe.
What impact has partition and the loss of their land meant for the Sindhis? You've done a lot of studies on the new nationalism, post-partition, how it impacted the psyche, because this is a community that has lost its home.
Yes.
And it's made the world its home. That's the line that we are going with. But what impact has it had on the community, you think?
See, when the partition took place, it was very unfortunate one way that the entire Sindh was given away to Pakistan. If you look at it, the greatest injustice has been done to Sindhis, because as far as Punjab is concerned, Punjab was cut into two. So from West Punjab,
people could come back
East Punjab, and that the Hindus settled over there. Cultural continuity is there. Punjabi language survived, and today Punjabi language is there in East Punjab as well as in West Punjab. When we talk about that Sindhis, why did they leave Sindh? They were assured, and the Sindhi Muslims did take care of them. But when Muhajirs came, the Muhajirs now felt that they have left their land and they need to be rehabilitated. Now Punjab was not ready for rehabilitation, because from here the population has come there, and from there the population has come there, and it's a fair exchange. But from here 24% if it is going, then this 24% of Hindus owned lot of property. They had palatial houses in Karachi, Clifton area, which is a very, very upmarket area, all had Sindhis over there. So, and Sindhi colleges were also there.
Sure.
So Sindhis, and banking, the bankers were Sindhis. So as such, the moneyed were there. They were all Sindhis.
They still say Sindh's economy has never recovered after the Sindhis left, because it completely collapsed. Because you had the entire trading network done by Sindhis.
Trading,
right?
banking, everything was done by the Hindus, and they were the money lenders. They were the ones to whom the artisan would mortgage their land and take money from them, and when they would not pay, the money lender will take away their land. Lot of land transferred its ownership from the Muslims into the hands of the Hindus. So this 24% was a very robust, rich population, but small in numbers. So the Muhajirs came and they started bullying them, etc.
Sure.
That's where the Sindhi Muslims told the Hindus that now it's time for you to leave, because we will not be able to take care of you.
But the Sindhis did manage to take care of themselves and thrive in business and education. While some went on to build global empires, others went on to set up the biggest educational centers in the country. It is hard to imagine that this township of Powai, home to skyscrapers and corporate headquarters, was a marsh few would have ventured into, or that today real estate here in a suburb so far from the old business district of Nariman Point is so expensive. All this has a lot to do with the man behind it. A first-generation entrepreneur, Niranjan Hiranandani's father, L.H. Hiranandani, was one of the most prominent Sindhis of his generation. His son tells me how he ventured out to try a new innings.
Well, long story. Basically, I did my commerce, so I couldn't do my medicine, and I really thought that I was not fit enough to be reaching the anvils where my father had reached, because he was a very eminent person, Dhanvantri Padma Bhushan, and excellent in his subject of ear, nose, throat surgery. And I really didn't think that I would ever be able to achieve anything close to what he did. So I thought I must be different, and at that point of time I looked up to many people who were in the business of business and thought maybe I could emulate some of them. And so I took commerce instead of medicine, and did my I did my BCom, and my father persuaded me to do my chartered accountancy, because he said, look, if your business fails, then you at least have a backup in terms of doing your chartered accountancy as a profession. And he and Mr. Nani Palkhiwala, who was a friend of my father, both actually bullied me into doing my CA, which I did. And of course, that's I didn't really practice my chartered accountancy, and I straight away dwelled into business.
You know, it's interesting. I've heard it said that you took a loan of 10 lakhs to buy this land which is in the marshes in the back of beyond around Bombay. And when he first came and saw it, he says that, you know, his biographer has quoted him as saying that, my God, I was like, what has he done? My money has been sunk. So, I mean, how did you land up picking up this marshland, and what was the idea behind it? Because at that point, it would have been a huge risk to take, right?
Yeah, but this was not the property which my father gave money for. The money was given in a land in Malad. But the long was that I always started with smaller buildings, but my ambition was always to make larger areas to develop. I never dreamt at the time when I started that I would make a township ever. I didn't have the wherewithal to do it, either monetary or the knowledge of this subject. And since I was just a chartered accountant and really making my way to with all the rest of it that I needed to learn, it was quite a long way to do. But in the beginning, really, I was in textiles before I did my real estate fervor. I thought that the textile unit would be my foray, which would be in perpetuity, and this was just really a sideline investments into real estate. But ultimately, after a couple of years when I was doing both, I realized that I was almost bankrupt and I had to sell one of the businesses. I didn't know which one to sell, but I got a notice from the union of the textile unit saying they wanted a 100% increase in wages. I know they would have been satisfied with 10%. But in reality, since I couldn't decide, I used the letter from the union to decide for me.
As a sign.
As a sign from the Almighty. And I sold off the textile unit in 81. And since then, I didn't turn back. Of course, huge number of ups and downs in life. But if you look at the balance sheet of life, I guess it was much more ups than there were downs. But some of the downs was really precarious.
It took great guts to venture into the hurly-burly of the Mumbai real estate business, and Hiranandani has done well despite ups and downs, as he says. Today, he's one of India's top 10 real estate tycoons with an impressive international presence. Interestingly, apart from running a successful business empire, Niranjan Hiranandani is also active in the field of education. In addition to the Hiranandani Foundation School started by his family trust, he is also a trustee and former president of the Hyderabad Sindh National Collegiate Board, which has some of Mumbai's most prestigious colleges under its umbrella. In fact, the Sindhi connection with education in Mumbai comes from the pre-partition era when the University of Sindh was affiliated to the University of Bombay under the Bombay Presidency.
Shifting track a little, your father was a very, very prominent member of the Sindhi community and a person of great eminence. Growing up, you were born after partition. Growing up, what was the construct of being Sindhi in your mind? What were the stories that you grew up with?
Funnily, though we were Sindhi, and of course we spoke the language and we were like exposed to a lot of Sindhi, we were, because of my father's broad-mindedness, we were exposed to every community, and he treated all community people as equals. So though the institutions with which we got associated were Sindhi based institutions in the sense that is there, but in reality, if you look at the number of teachers, staff and the students, more than 60% or so are non-Sindhis. in these institutions. So really the broad basing of this thought and idea that all communities are really equal and togetherness, and it was so easy for me to be intimate to all communities.
The Sindhis, most of whom lost their home during the partition of India in 1947, got back on their feet in just a few decades. Hiranandani says that this is because of their survival instincts that allow them to adapt quickly.
I think there are three factors. The first factor is you don't have a land, so you don't have an anchor. So you have to make an anchor wherever you go. Wherever the ship sails, you lay your anchor and then you really do your level best and flower into that area. So Sindhis came to Mumbai like my parents did, and we kind of put our things over here. So we realized that we needed to give back to society, we needed to grow in this society, we needed to see that we embrace the society and all the customs and the things that are taking place. So what really happened is that we don't have a land to go back. You don't have a gaon to go back to your village during your holidays and things like that. This is your gaon. So wherever we got, rooted, that became our land. So those who went to Hong Kong treat that as their land. Those who go to London treat that as the land, and Dubai and so on and so forth. So Mumbai has been my land, and I've been as much a Maharashtrian as a Sindhi.
Have you ever thought of going back to Sindh, seeing it? I mean, is there any kind of call back from the land that you came from? I mean, anything psychological that you've...
Yes, I did go.
You did go?
I did go. I think about 13, 14 years back. I got an opportunity because I was invited by the Prince Ali Khan Hospital in Karachi because we were putting up a hospital, and some of the people, the trustees over here of the Prince Ali Khan Hospital, are extremely intimately known to us as a family. And they wanted to show that. I've been following that community very closely and lots of friends in that community. So they actually invited me as an honored guest to meet their mentor as well as see their hospital. So I had an opportunity to actually visit Karachi. In that period, I did visit part of Sindh over there and try to see what my father talked about. I couldn't find many of the things remaining of what my father spoke about. But in reality, it was nice to see that the common man on the street speaking in Sindhi, and a language I could interact with them. The accents are slightly different, but in reality, we could understand each other and I could speak to them. It was quite a delight.
And so what was the place like? I mean, did you go to the place that you originally came back from?
Tata in Sindh is where my father came from. Honest to God, I couldn't possibly have associated it with it if I had not been over there. Really? Now I can, because it's a kind of a sleepy place, and now bustling with lot of activity. So, the extreme has taken place from what had happened pre-independence and now. So there's a lot of difference which has taken place, and of course a large part of it is destroyed in terms of change took place post-partition, and most of the houses except one that I was able to photograph.
But were there old palatial bungalows at the Sindh?
Well, actually the community was not very rich over there. So from where my father came from, because I lost my grandfather when my father was only 5. But on my mother's side, there were a lot of rich people, and my Nana's side of the family were extremely wealthy. And they lost a lot in post-partition changes as far as that is concerned. Financially, my father didn't lose anything because he didn't have anything except liabilities. And but my mother's side, yes, they did lose a lot in terms of wealth. What I think it brings about is a new energy. And either you say, give up, we have lost it all, or say, this is a new beginning. I think the Sindhis as a community treat all their losses, failures, as a beginning to a new pedestal. That is the real character of Sindhis. So what changes that you are asking about is really that characteristic where a community is able to withstand failure and use that as a new pedestal to take off. People treat failures with such loss that they're not able to stand up again. And that's a very sad thing. But Sindhis are not like that. I would say less than 0.25% of the Sindhis will ever put out a hand to beg. And that also is only a recent phenomena, not a phenomena in the yesteryear that would happen. So you do find that the people who had come with the character of what the Sindhis which migrated from Pakistan really worked very hard in order to bring about their entrepreneurship or any other work that they did. That's really something which I think makes a difference between the Sindhis as a community, as a group of people, and I think that's really a victorious sign. Second, just like the small Parsi community, the Sindhi community is very small compared, of course, bigger than Parsi community, but similarly small as respect to the totality of Hindus or Indians are concerned now. But they outshine in the sectors that they stand about. Whether it's a legal profession and you have Ram Jethmalani, or you have the cancer specialist in Suresh Advani, or you have the businessmen in Hindujas and Rahejas and so on and so forth, or industry that you may have in the terms of Chabrias, the diversity in which they have excelled is extreme. The biggest, of course, is the magnanimity of the community, wanting to give back to the society that they belong today, not only to the community. So surprisingly, the donors in the Sindhi community have not only donated in Ulhasnagar. In fact, I think the amount donated there is very small, but they donated all over.
A self-made man, Niranjan Hiranandani is today counted amongst the richest Sindhis in the world. He says business came easy to him. In fact, he thinks he was born with a flair for it.
One of the concerns that I have come across both among the Chettiars and the Parsis is how do you get the spirit of entrepreneurship in the younger generation, you know, because many of the younger kids are, first they are born into affluence, so the hunger is less, okay. The second is that they are more exposed to multiple options, they have professionally trained, many of them, and entrepreneurship might not be the top concern. In your case, since you are a professional coming into entrepreneurship, I don't know whether that's a big concern for you also, but do you think the community is working towards creating more entrepreneurs? What's your sense?
I don't think the community as a community are doing it, but somehow or the other, I do find a lot of entrepreneurship is taking place in the next generation also, though what you said is right. A lot of other directions are also opportunities are coming up. So many people who would be next generation may not go into the lines of entrepreneurship. But I think there are sufficient, at least in the Sindhi community, for people to take up entrepreneurship at the next generation level. I'm not so worried about that. Okay. I'm more worried about the fact that language and culture, can it be maintained? Entrepreneurship is in the blood. Somehow or the other, I think it just somehow comes naturally to them or to us. Though I never believed that it would be there in me, because as I told you, none in my family were anyway concerned with business or enterprise, and I had no precedent in my family to follow.
But that just proves it's in the blood, right?
Exactly. So I do believe that it is there in the blood, so to say. But I think, of course, it can be developed too. It's not something that is so foreign that only if you have got a line of lineage that it can happen. I think it can be ingrained and taught. It's possible to ignite that flame. But I think in Sindhis, you don't have to ignite the flame. It's there in the blood.
That may well be true if you look at how well the Sindhis have done across India, often under the radar. Take, for example, a list of the most successful Sindhi business groups, and you will find many of them are based in London, Dubai or Southeast Asia, making the world their own. Most people believe that the Sindhis started spreading their businesses across continents because they were forced out of their land during India's partition. But the journey out started way earlier. Take, for instance, the start of the Jetline group that was started in Thailand in the 1930s. Rajan Navani, the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of the group, tells me how his grandfather started out.
You know, it's very interesting you point this out. So, in our case, my grandfather actually migrated from Pakistan, Sindh, Hyderabad, Sindh, way before partition, actually. You know, most of the people got displaced during partition, though the rest of the family, which was resident in Pakistan, actually moved out at that point. But so he migrated to Thailand, survived a world war, you know, and, you know, like and after partition, actually having nothing, I think the true spirit of entrepreneurship comes there, right? I mean, no resources, but very high ambition, to create this, and then you have no option but to become an entrepreneur, innovate to, achieve your success. So I think the spirit of business and entrepreneurship actually, was inspired by him. And, he was in Thailand and built his business there. And, I was born in Bangkok, and, my early memories of him are always as one who was a workaholic. So he worked 363 days a year. The only 2 days he took off was the New Year, the English New Year and the Chinese New Year.
Okay.
And my dad, was the kind of rebel in the family, because when he got married, he said, we need a day off in a week, So just the spirit of hard work, enterprising, work culture is something that, we just grew up in.
Famous as traders and merchants, Sindhis, Rajan tells me, have a nose for opportunity, and his grandfather started by going back to the basics.
He believed as an entrepreneur, he needs to cater to the human need. And he said, like what we say, roti, kapra, makan, if we were to look at, food, clothing and shelter as the three basic requirements of human beings, he applied very simple logic. He said food, like in Thailand, everybody is making food. So he didn't think he had a competitive advantage. Shelter, if you wanted to build homes, he said you needed capital. So he said, I'll do that later, but I need to build capital. So I think as out of default, he picked textiles and clothing. And I think when he looked at his strength was being an explorer. So he left, as I said, Pakistan, Sindh on a ship and came to Thailand. So he went from Thailand to Europe and brought European textiles into Thailand. So when you brought European textiles and started trading it into Southeast Asia, automatically who were going to pay the 400% premiums and 500% were the influential members of society. So he got very deeply integrated with the royal family and others in Thailand. And then when, the Aditya Birla Group came to Thailand in the late 60s, looking for, setting up manufacturing plants, automatically my grandfather, was one of the key people who were the co-promoters with the Aditya Birla Group. And Aditya Birla and my grandfather were good friends. And then, there started the journey through Indo-Thai Synthetic, Thyrion, the different textile manufacturing companies in Thailand. So, I think the spirit of Sindhis being able to integrate into societies, create, opportunities.
Sell snow to the Eskimo also, right? They can sell snow to the Eskimo, right?
Yeah, probably.
But despite the success, the memories of the partition left permanent scars. Rajan recalls how his grandfather lived with the fear always lurking in the background.
As a family, you wouldn't have seen the pain of, or witnessed the pain of partition like many other Sindhis did. What was the story that came back to you from relatives, from family members? How terrible was it over there?
No, it was terrible. Actually, so while my grandfather was there, my grandmother and the family was still back in Sindh. So they actually moved during partition. So the pain in the family was visible to everyone in our family, and it was definitely very painful. People who had built a lot had to just leave everything and move away. And I think that fear of being displaced continued for a very long time.
Really?
In the way Sindhis also behave, right? I mean, even though you're in Thailand, you're there, you're always ready to move if the need arises, right? So I still remember after my grandfather passed away and we opened, another locker, there were $1 bills lying there, right? And somewhere my dad, my grandfather used to say that tomorrow if we have to just take and run, if I'm giving a $10 bill, I'm not going to get change back, right? So they used to think, I think the psychosis of moving or being displaced, having survived a world war or whatever, was second nature to them, which is something we don't even think of today, right? I mean, it doesn't even strike us that something might happen and we might be displaced, as easily. But they were real, things, and the stories were ghastly. I mean, it was really a life of struggle, and I think it's about, Sindhis actually coming back from having lost everything.
While it was a major setback, what is also amazing is that rarely do you find Sindhis talking about that partition period, they have moved on quite literally. Any conversation around partition is really about Punjab and Lahore. Of course, it was a much more violent part over there. The Sindhis didn't see the kind of violence over there. But what do you think made the community get back on its feet so quickly?
I think there are a couple of things, right? One is just the spirit and the enterprising nature of Sindhis. Probably it's something that as a community you inherit, right? And I always if you see Israelis, right, today, because they are living in an area of conflict, they're always trying to be one step ahead. And therefore, when you look at innovation today, a lot of it stems from there. Because it's just the nature of a community, the circumstances in which they've lived and what has driven them. And somewhere, I see the enterprising nature of Sindhis, being somewhere that it's a lot cultural, and people make fun of it and joke about it. But at the same time, there is also a spirit of really, merging very well into other communities and other places and other people and other regions, and that's because Sindhis never had a state. And even today, Sindhis don't have a country, they don't have a state. Imagine, belonging to a community that cannot claim anything as its home. The Hindu Sindhis really have no home that they can call home. So you just become adaptive wherever you are, you integrate well, and I think that's one of the reasons they've succeeded, in many parts of the world.
The community is very dispersed, Rajan. I mean, I've been to the Philippines, there's a vibrant Sindhi community there. London has a Sindhi community. How integrated is there? I mean, is there a conversation that's happening? Is there a forum where youngsters meet up? I mean, how does it work? Or is it so fragmented and spread out that, that it's just a notional kind of coming together?
Yeah, I think the local Sindhi communities in specific countries or cities are definitely very well connected. I mean, they will celebrate Diwali together, they'll celebrate Sindhi occasions together, and in each of the cities you will find a few prominent Sindhis setting up a Sindhi mandir, setting up a place where Sindhis can congregate and come together for any specific region. I think the connection between Sindhis around the world, while it used to happen earlier from trading and business, I still remember so many of our family members and so many of our traders and people you worked with were friends. A lot of the business was done on word of mouth, on an understanding, and all of that continued. So that linked the Sindhis from England to the Sindhis in Africa to the Sindhis in Asia and all of that, at least from the business community. But the advent of technology now and the social networks and all have actually changed it. So now you find a lot of Sindhi networks that are looking to promote marriages within the community, to showcase success of Sindhis in different parts of the world. The US the entire country has a very vibrant young Sindhi adults, which actually and older people generation are very happy with that, because the younger members at least are meeting the community, speaking a little bit of the language, trying to retain some culture. So it is there, but not as much as many other communities, because somewhere because of the smartness of other Sindhis, even Sindhis realize that. So when they deal with other Sindhis today, they are wary of how to do business and things like that. So there is this little thing that is also present.
So I'm asking everybody in the series this question, but is there a particular Sindhi way of doing business? Is there some kind of manual that you have that you say that, hey, these are the things that I've inherited, and this is the smarts that I have, huh?
I don't know, but sometimes it's again, it's a little different for each, but yeah, the business negotiation kind of process, start from one extreme and then say theek hai, and come to a compromise solution and still make the other person feel that they won, whereas you very well know that you have won. These are a lot in the trader community. So if a Sindhi looks at you and says, hey, this is 100 rupees, and you look at it and you say, no, this is 40 or 50, and he'll shake hands and say done, then you realize, shit, maybe that was 20 bucks. It's the same thing. So when a guy says it, sometimes there is that, because it's driven by the business profit agenda, and that's just a view. And today I think it's a global world. You compete globally, you compete with others. It's a very transparent world. So, you know, I think a lot of those instinctive kind of traits can get you only so far.
With interest in technology and startups, Rajan represents a new generation of Sindhis who are bridging barriers and building even more global high-tech businesses, opening up a new chapter in the Sindhis' long tryst with business. This is the Sadhu Vaswani Mission Center in Pune, the seat of the 100-year-old spiritual heir to Sadhu T.L. Vaswani, whose message of universal love and reverence for all has inspired people across faiths for decades. Today, this center is a spiritual sanctuary for Sindhis across the world and across age groups. The philosophy that Dada Vaswani preaches is that of brotherhood, simple living and love. It transcends faiths even as it leans on the wisdom of scriptures like the Gita and the Vedas. A lot of what Dada preaches, he tells me, is also influenced by the land he comes from. Dada's teachings have a strong Sufi and Sikh influence.
We were sort of followers of Guru Nanak.
Really?
Yes, yes. Sadhu Vaswani had the greatest reverence for Guru Nanak.
Even the Sufi influence is something that you write a lot about. Was there a very strong Sufi influence as well?
They put a question to Sadhu Vaswani, "Who are you?" And he gave different answers on different occasions, but on one occasion he said, "I am a Sufi." There was no idea fundamentalism in those days. Now they say you can't be a Sufi until first you become a Muslim.
Yeah.
Then only you can become a Sufi.
But would you say that you're closer to Sufi faith, the Guru Granth Sahib or the Gita? I mean, how would you, if you were to put, it's all together?
They're all one.
This is rare footage of Swami Vaswani after he came back to India in 1949 following the partition. After he passed on in 1966, the mantle of spiritual head went to Dada. Dada explains that the message he carries forth is simple.
Every religion tells you that you must live at peace with your brother.
It is this simple philosophy that has helped many Sindhis find a mooring, giving them the ability to not just move on but also thrive.
I think it is the grace of God that helps, because their coming up has been quite rapid. I have asked a number of my Hindu friends that if we get Sindh back, would you like to go to Sindh? They say, no, we are happy here.
The gentle voice and compassionate words of Dada Vaswani have helped heal the scars of partition and loss. It is a testimony to this community's spirit and grit that their past is behind them, and today they have their eyes set on the future and the many opportunities it will bring.